Hello, and welcome to another episode of Questioning Everything. Open Lines Friday, episode 39. Last couple episodes, we've talked a lot about Old World Chicago yesterday. Had a couple great sit downs with some good podcasts. If you guys haven't had a chance to listen to those yet, uh, and of course, we've went over Old World New York last week. So tonight it's going to be all about what you guys want to talk about. I have a couple topics on hand we'll go over as well through the night, but mostly taking your guys' questions, your comments, what you guys find intriguing to talk about. And yeah, we'll go from there. The first thing, though, I did want to kind of circle back around at the start of the show and mention was the missing scientist. We are now up to 10, 11, some as much as 15, depending on who you're talking to, uh, that have all either gone missing or have had very unusual circumstances behind their passings. And recently we had a father and son team. This was the most recent ones that were both connected to NASA, and they had it was like a personal flight of theirs that crashed short of the runway, and their entire family died. Um, the missing scientist, let me just scroll up to my notes on that here. So the missing scientist we have is it was a father and son. I'm just getting back up to the top of it. James Tony Moffat, 60 years old, veteran pilot, aerospace engineer, and a former NASA employee. He worked at NASA's Johnson Space Center as a payload and flight crew support specialist. He participated in 14 space shuttle and ISS construction missions, whether or not you want to believe that. And his son, Andrew Moffat, was 30 years old. He was a research engineer and scientist at the University of Alabama in Huntsville. He was a research and engineering support center very close to NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center and Redstone Arsenal, basically Rocket City. So, what happened was the entire family, Tony, his wife, and their two sons, Andrew and William, 28, died when their small single engine Mooney M20 plane crashed in a wooden area near Union County Airport in South Carolina. The crash happened on April 17th, 2026, and just 3 days before David Wilcox's death. David Wilcox, as well, is another one that's kind of getting tied to this list. He was a member of, he wasn't like connected in terms of like an engineer or anything. He was, a truth seeker, a disclosure, uh, one fighting for disclosure. Here's the son and the father and the wife that just recently passed away in that plane crash. But yeah, it happened right in the middle of the scientist disappearing wave. Crash is still under investigation. No official causes yet. Um, but the crash is kind of already suspicious. So the crash details was the plane crashed in a heavily wooded area about 1,200 feet from the end of the runway, roughly a quarter mile. And it happened during the base to final turn for runway 5. There was a post impact fire that consumed most of the wreckage. The plane hit trees and terrain on final approach. Weather was not a factor. Reports say conditions were unremarkable. There was no significant winds, plenty of visibility. and no mention as of yet of mechanical failure in the preliminary reports, though one early social media post did claim engine failure. This has not been yet confirmed by the NTSB or the FAA. Hey, GZ, thank you very much. I am glad you enjoyed my podcast with JT. If you guys haven't caught that yet, either go check it out on his page, JT Talks JC, or you can check it out. I just got it uploaded on my page as well. Yeah, we had a great conversation. We've already spoken off air about making it a regular occurrence. We both have tons of stuff to talk about, old world, and we had a great rapport with one another, a great kind of give and take. So I think it'll be a lot more episodes to come from JT and I. So I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. Thank you very much, Joy. Again, I appreciate that. Yeah, it was an awesome show. I had a lot of fun. Also, the Tim Constantine's podcast, if you haven't caught that Sixth Sensory podcast, that was another great conversation I had with them. Getting signed up with more and more podcasters to go on their shows, to come on mine. Tim Constantine's actually scheduled to appear on my show May 5th. So that's going to be Tuesday, May 5th. We're going to have a live with Tim Constantine. He's going to discuss a lot of the dams related to the old world, how they were used to bury and erase a lot of the old cities that were already here, especially in America. So if you guys have any questions for him, go check out his shows and get them ready. And big shout out to Nephilim Hunter for setting me up with those two. They were a great host, and I appreciate them. If you guys have anybody that you know that has a podcast and they'd like to have me on their guest, just get in my contact information, my email address. I'm the improbable dreamer at gmail.com. I've been able to get more time set aside to go on these podcasts. I've always had a lot of requests to go on podcasts, and it hasn't really been until recent when I've really had the time to sit down. I just got a brand new web camera too. If you guys haven't noticed, my last one was like 780p quality, and this one is a little bit better, 4K. So since it worked perfectly with my computer, it didn't crash my computer. We went ahead and updated the equipment a little bit. Still working on the computer end, but one thing at a time, I suppose, right? So back to the scientist here. So that plane crash, the person that was flying, the father, was a very experienced pilot. No loss of visibility, no like weather, high winds, or anything like that. Mechanical failure hasn't been ruled out yet. Again, it's a relatively new situation and it's ongoing. The FAA and NTSB are in the process of investigating it now. So I'll keep you guys posted on that and all the other scientists as well. Oh boy, I don't know if you guys heard that. It sounded like a crotch rocket raced past my house. So let's give you guys a whole breakdown as to where we are for all of these scientists, for those not fully in the know here. So we have officially, let me just pull back up my list on this, get to the scientist page. So officially, it's either anywhere from like 10 to 11 scientists, engineers, all connected to nuclear aerospace research, um, going back to 2022. Amy Eskridge was one of the newer ones added onto the list. Initially, I kind of just dismissed her when I first heard about like a week ago when they added her, because it sounded like they're just kind of adding to the list to fluff it. But she was an expert in anti-gravity, exotic propulsion, researcher who sent texts days before her death, and her death was officially ruled a suicide. However, days before she died, she sent several texts saying she was being targeted and being watched. So, the government can definitely make, or whoever it's behind all of these, can definitely make people look like they got unalived themselves. So, we also have the Moffat father and son. Um, that's the latest one that's kind of been added to the list. David Wilcock, as you know, he was a long time truth seeker in the community. Let me see if I have a picture of David Wilcock here or not. Um, Long time member in the truth seeking community. Yeah, let me just pull that up for you guys here. UFO researcher. He was on Ancient Aliens. Again, like anti gravity tech theorist, stuff like that. He had a troubled life as I kind of dug into his, kind of recent history myself. He's kind of had a troubled time, but it is very suspicious. He said he'd never, commit suicide type thing. And then, he went and did it anyway. So he was a public disclosure researcher who has just been talking about the scientists going missing. And then, so basically anywhere from, depending on who you ask, 12, 13, 14, or 15 names on this list. Um, So yeah, it definitely seems like it's a thing. Seems like a lot of it's connected to UFO, UAP, anti-gravity tech. Like they're either building something. Those missing five scientists we talked about last Friday, how they all disappeared, including the general, all disappeared the exact same way, just kind of left their house, no wearables, no trackable devices, no cell phones. One of them factory reset their cell phone and left it at home. Another one of them, one of the really weird ones, kind of like a whole missing 411 type of case. She was hiking in the national park, and she was with a group of friends. She was a little bit behind them. They said they just turned around, seen her waving and smiling, and then they, turned back, looked back again a few moments later, and she was gone without a trace. So very, very odd occurrences. It seems like we are indeed living in a movie. Uh, it just gets weirder and weirder every day with these scientists, and especially how it is being pumped up a lot by the mainstream. That's my concern about it. They want us to know about it. They want us to kind of be focused on it. They're amping it up. They're spreading it. They're not just dismissing it as a conspiracy, as usually is the case when they don't want stuff to be talked about. So keep an eye on it, folks. It's very, very interesting, but also be aware that it could just be another distraction, another event to just take our energy and our time. So with that, let's take a few of your questions I did not get to yesterday. I just kind of got a list going here. Yesterday, of course, we spent a lot of time talking about old world Chicago. So I took a few of your questions, just kind of wanted to highlight them. Kathy Marshall, you said, I saw the Hawaii fires didn't even touch any blue cars or blue roofs for some odd reason. And that is a great point, Kathy, with these recent directed energy weapons, whether we think the old world fires were directed energy weapons or part of a remnants from a reset or an actual fire. They definitely have a lot of similarities to these odd major like fires that we've had in recent years. And a lot of people have noticed that those fires don't tend to burn blue roofed houses, which is very interesting. So much so, a lot of people have started painting the tops of their roofs blue. So, yeah, there are a lot of similarities when you look at some of these great fires and some of these forest fires that we've been having recently, like in LA, the Hawaii fires. Alice, you've also said, going after some of the questions you guys left yesterday about the dews and the great fires, I wonder how far back these dews go. Well, if you believe these are some kind of directed energy weapons that left these buildings with little to no scorch marks, trees and telephone utility poles completely unscathed, then we at least have a couple hundred years that go back. And I think of stuff like if you've ever heard of Archimedes' mirror, um, and you look at some of these structures that look like they were melted, like these mountains look like they were actually melted structures. A lot of them were. Technologies like an Archimedes mirror and stuff, which has been around for thousands of years, could have well been at play in some of these resets. I personally think these melted structures that we see from further back in the past, not the last reset. Sorry, my daughter's having a field day in there with her brother. They're trying to get her to sleep. I don't know if you guys can hear that or not. So apologies. Let me adjust my camera a little bit more. There we go. So, I mean, yeah, they could go back for thousands of years. Another one, RGZ, you said blue is the 0.666 setting on that laser. It doesn't burn a blue. So again, another 666 reference in all of this world. But yeah, I'm not sure about if that blue is the 0.666 setting, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's why it's not going there. Kind of a little symbolism in these lasers, these do attacks. And yeah, you also said RGZ, everything is biblical. Yeah, it really is. And it goes back to what I've told you guys many, many times. We are truly living in a biblical war of good versus evil, uh, spiritual war that we've been born into, that's been going on for quite some time. Whether or not you choose to believe, that's up to you, but you have to at least raise an eyebrow that so many of these world elites pay homage to Satan, um, Satanism, practicing devil worship. You just look at some of the very odd occultish behavior of these elites. They all like to get their ball worship in, and it all seems to revolve around these children. Big, big part of it, anyways, right? Uh, Trafficking has been going on for some time. Just like the other topic I kind of wanted to get to that we didn't have a chance, just talking about those orphan trains and those orphan asylums. Chicago was another huge hub for those orphan trains and orphans asylums. They had a large Cook County Insane Asylum in Chicago, a very, very large asylum there. And they also had several orphan asylums in there as well. Chicago was a big hub for sending out and receiving these orphan children, which I find weird too. Like just how they worked so much to send out these kids all over the place. Like Chicago was a huge city. There should have been plenty of homes and families for them, but they'd send these kids again, these orphan children, um, on these orphan trains with zero family records. 99% of them had no documents, no birth certificates, no family records, no information on their family at all. They were just kids that essentially appeared. And same with all of these orphan asylums, large amounts of orphan asylums all across the country, all across the world, really, especially in like America and stuff, where they would just send these unaccompanied minors on these trains all across the country. And these frontier towns with zero populations listed in censuses up until they started arriving. And why would you take these kids from their homes and their families, at least nearby families, wait for maybe if it was a mother that was a single mom and didn't have her stuff together, like at least give the family time to maybe eventually take over the kids. A lot of like foster children today, foster homes, they're not necessarily made to be permanent, right? Like if they get taken from their kids, though I don't really, I think modern DCFS is not at all in the business of actually helping children. They're part of that whole trafficking game, in my opinion. But uh, a lot of them, once the parents, if it's like drug related, something like that, court, criminal related, once they get their acts cleaned up, the kids go back to their parents. But they seem like they worked extra hard to make sure that was never going to be the case. Guy Anderson does awesome work on the Cabbage Patch Kids. Is that another truth seeker like podcaster, Kristen? I'll write his name down. Check him out after this show. I've not heard of him, at least not that I remember. I'll check out. I know a couple really good creators have done great work on like the Cabbage Patch Kids and the Orphan trains. I believe Mind Unleashed is one of them. If you guys haven't checked out him, I highly recommend him. He's made quite a few good videos on like the orphan trains, the orphan asylums, or I don't know about the orphan asylums, but the orphan trains and the Cabbage Patch Kids. Which, if you don't remember us talking about that, I'll maybe talk a little bit more about the Cabbage Patch Kids in another episode because there's a lot of depth behind these children, and it connects the oddities of the old world and the oddities of today. All of the parasites that ran the world then and the parasites that run the world now, most of them being one and the same families, um, they all have that connection between these odd links to children and potential trafficking and stuff. Yeah, Mind Unveiled. Highly recommend his page, Joy. Great shout out there. Kristen, you said I sent you his email. He said he would absolutely love to come on. He has written 3 books, great conspiracy theories. I thought I seen that email. She just sent it to me recently. I'll check it out after the show. I'll definitely make a note on that to check my email on that. Like I said, I get flooded with a lot of emails, a lot of spam and stuff like that. I try and get back to as much legitimate messages, requests as I can. Sometimes with the busy schedule and all of that, it just kind of falls to the wayside, gets forgotten. I do apologize. Just resend your guys' requests if you don't hear from me in a timely manner. It's not that I don't want to talk to you. It's just, busy lives, lots of things kind of get forgotten about. There's never enough hours in the day, right? So let's see here. Take a couple more of your questions I got pulled from the show. Um, some of the old world streamers, I think Michael said, some of the old world streamers think that the Great Lakes are filled in mines. Um, yeah, yeah, we talked a little bit about that last night. The theories on what these Great Lakes actually were. Michael, great question that I didn't get to yesterday. So, and if you look at the maps of the other water maps of the Great Lakes, and I'll pull up a couple here of Lake Michigan, it does very much look like a filled in quarry. Here is, let's share my screen on one of them. Hope that my kid isn't being too loud. Oh, she is getting kind of a little. I might have to put you guys on a brief pause. She's going a little wild. Hold tight, guys. I'll be right back in about 5 minutes. Father duty calls.
Powered by Riverside FM.
Okay, I'll be right back, guys. Keep your questions coming. I'll get to some of the live chat questions when I get back. Okay. Mrs. Improbable Dreamer. That's her weekend off, so she is nice enough to come jump in and help out with the little one. So I am back with you guys. Let's look at some of the chat questions that came in. Okay, Baby Shark doo 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 doo. She really likes Bluey. That's her favorite show right now. She loves to dance every time the opening segment comes in on Bluey. She just does her whole little booty dance. She's such a cutie. She grows up so fast. Um, Cherish those moments with the little ones, folks. They go by so quickly. If you guys have kids yourselves, or if you're thinking about having them, or for those that have kids that have grown up, you know this all too well. Very soon, all those fingerprints that we bicker about having to clean off the windows will be gone, long gone. And the memories of the little ones that made those fingerprints will be long gone, and in replace, they will be long grown up. So appreciate like having two kids, one that's kind of almost in middle school now. He's almost in third grade. He's almost done with second grade. Wow, I can't believe how quickly he's grown up. Gonna go to his second school soon. Like, appreciate those moments. They change. Like, they go from being a little baby that always wants to snuggle with you to being an absolute terror. Anyways, enough about that here. Where else were we? Chicago last night. I wanted to cover the Medina Athletic Club. I mentioned a lot of those buildings had very impossible construction times. We've focused a couple of them. Of we focused on a couple of them on the New York episode. I wanted to highlight one in Chicago. There's a lot more, and we'll have more to talk about in Chicago in further episodes as well. But I did want to get to the Medina Athletic Club. I did a video on it a while back on my YouTube channel. If you guys haven't checked that out, give it a watch. It's a little bit of an older one, but it's still a goodie, I think anyways. Might be a little biased on that. But the Medina Athletic Club, built between 1929 and 1930. It only took 1 year to build this beautiful structure, so they say. And really not even a full year because, again, this is Chicago, where there's very harsh Chicago winters, and you're not doing much construction in Illinois in the middle of winter. So, roughly about 9 to 10 months it took to build this beautiful structure that has tons of Egyptian symbolism, tons of Mesopotamian symbolism, a lot of just oddities behind it. The bird headed people that I mentioned, you can kind of see in some of these pictures. They are on the outside carved very beautifully, very intricately into the side of this structure. Another sculptings all across the side. You can kind of see here, not the best, but I got a few more pictures. Here's a close up on some of those like Sumerian gods um, that you see across the world. It's very heavily drenched building in symbolism. Um, like those bird-headed people, the watchers were what I was trying to tell you the other symbols were. Here's one of those bird people right here. Just very, very intricate carvings. Again, this was all done in just a year's time. In the mid 1900s, 1920, 1930. So they had a little bit of heavy machinery at the time, but again, nowhere close to what we have. And honestly, we can't even level the ground, the foundation for a structure like this in a year's time. I've seen skyscrapers and stuff being built. It takes a year just to level the ground that it's going to be built on, get the foundation poured. let alone building a massive skyscraper. So this building, like I said, supposedly only 1 year, including the Chicago winter. The architect was Walter W. Ashlager. Again, one of those architects. We've done a couple segments on these architects that were in the old world that had very little behind them other than like a few of these massive grand buildings. They're basically like ghostwriters, you know, they had no actual like verifiable past, no like lineage you can trace very deeply um, for these architects. Like if you look them up on Google, like this Walter guy, he only has like a little paragraph about him, and yet he built this magnificent structure. And just look at all of the like Egyptian kind of themes, Sumerian type themes that you see all through the inside. Beautiful as inside and outside. And this structure had at one time, and you can see some of those watchers right here, those guardians, little carved all on this building. Looks very antiquitech at the top too as well. This gold kind of onion dome. It once had a mooring station on top. I don't know if you guys seen that picture when I was flipping through it originally. Let me see if I can get back to it. Um, yeah, so they had a mooring station. Funny how they say all these airships, all this tech with the airships was all just an experimental phase, but you have a city, New York, that had a mooring station built on at least one skyscraper that they tell us about. And we have another one all the way, you know, in the Midwest in Chicago that had a mooring station, at least one that we know of, built on top of it. And nowadays they removed the top of the mooring station. They said it was just decorative and it was never actually used. But again, you have people that you know have far less means for construction, far less advanced tools and equipment, logistics. They had far less, you know, shipping to get all of this material, but they would just do the most elaborate, over the top extra stuff that they say was just ornate or never actually used. It just does not make sense for a time like that, a time where Chicago should still be reeling from those great fires that they had. But, you know, they're just building these in 1 year's time in a harsh Chicago winter to boot. It just does not really make much sense. Um, and again, the entire structure is just loaded with esoteric, ancient Middle Eastern symbolism. And Illinois is kind of known for that as well. You've heard, I've mentioned it on this channel before, and I'm sure you guys have heard the theory before that America was actually the biblical old world, like the big biblical Jerusalem, Israel, uh, and the parasites that run the world now just kind of inverted and changed up geographic locations. And there's a lot of odd evidences like this, like the Illinois region and the Mississippi, the Nile and Mississippi being one of the only rivers that flow north. Um, so you have those kind of similarities. Illinois has a lot of Egyptian named cities. There's Cairo, Illinois. There's well, I'm trying to think from a long time, Illinois, and off the top of my head, Cairo, Illinois. Gosh, I can't think. There's just several Egyptian named cities and Egyptian themed architecture like this. A lot of those mound pyramids also found in the Illinois region, all through that Mississippi Valley. So very odd connections there, and a very odd choice of symbols for a building in the New World. Just gotta make sure I go through all these photos I had pulled for the Medina Club. It's one of the buildings I kind of wanted to highlight. Um, Yeah, again, only built in a year's time, folks. It's just crazy to think. And if you try and build something like this now, it'd take a half a decade easily. And it wouldn't have near as much detail and beautiful ornate carvings all through the sides of the buildings. Yeah, Palestine, Ohio, Memphis, Tennessee. Yeah, that's a couple. Yeah, a lot of Egyptian names, a lot of Middle Eastern areas. It's very like that whole area. It's like, you know, very Egyptian esque. Cairo, Illinois is just like a little town in the dead of the southern Illinois, but there's just a lot of connections and a lot of pyramids in the Midwest. Wisconsin, where I live, has tons and tons of pyramids as well. Um, well, they're buried mounds, but they won't excavate them either. Um, and they're very pyramid shaped. Let's take a few of your guys' questions here as well, though. Let's see. Scrolling through the chat, folks. Yeah, that's why the dome look altered. Yep. Yeah, absolutely, Michael. The top of the Medina Club now does not have. Let me see if I can find a picture of the just the top of it. You can see where they just took it right off. Yep, right here. Let me share this picture again for you guys. I don't know if I showed it to you or not. But yeah, this is what it looks like without the dome now, or without the mooring station right on top. They just kind of just took it like right off. So it looks very odd and out of place. You can see the beautiful ornate detail even right up to where the mooring station was. And as was so common, just look at the top of this building too, just all the detail that was put into it. And to say it was only built in a year's time, that's just so laughable. It's just like those World's Fairs. They say they were built in a year's time, torn down in 6 months later. I mean, why would you put so much work into something like that to be torn down in only 6 months' time? Um, Bethel, Arkansas. Yeah, Bethel, Genesis 12:8, found in Arkansas, California, Connecticut, and other. Bethlehem, Genesis 35:19 in Arkansas, Connecticut, and Jerusalem. Joshua 10:1 in Arkansas. Okay. Yeah, America, and a lot of people have said that in a spot in Florida, I'm not exactly sure where, but the actual Garden of Eden was in Florida. The rivers that flow, there's like three rivers that need to flow directly into this island, and one of the only locations geographically that that happens is in Florida. I'm, I think it's like in this is like Florida. It's like the Tampa Bay region. I'm not sure, Chad, if you know exactly where that is off the top of my head. I don't, but yeah, somewhere in the Florida regions, Florida Everglades, I believe it is where people say that the Garden of Eden was. So, lots of ties to the biblical area actually being in America. Perhaps we can go into a full episode on that in coming weeks, kind of going over all the biblical connections between America. I made an episode a while back, if you guys remember, on America perhaps being old world Atlantis. There's tons of maps showing America being marked not as like North America or anything, but as Atlantis. So that would explain all of these old world structures here long before they should have been, looking far older than they should be. They were here already in a civilization like Atlantis. So, with that here, let's jump into a few more of your guys' questions. That's kind of all I wanted to cover that I left out on Chicago. If you guys have any more you want to talk about with Chicago as well, drop them in the chat. If any of you guys want to call into the show as well, I'd love to have any live guests. We had Nephilim Hunter last week on the show. If you guys don't know how to do that, you can just say something in chat, jump into my Discord. The link for my Discord you can find in the bio of any of my pages you guys are on. Just go into the bio, just click on my link tree, and you'll find the Discord link. If you can click on the link here on my that I just dropped, some pages I think like YouTube can. I just sent you a quick link to the studio. You don't have to download anything. You don't have to have a camera if you don't want to. All you need is a microphone or a phone or whatever, and you can call right in. We do that pretty much every week. Every episode, we can do that. If you guys want to call in just anytime, just drop something in chat. And if I can see it, I will take it. I have a couple moderators out there now. So if they see it as well, uh, they'll try and let me know also. Um, and then, yeah, we can get you guys on the show, talk about anything from the topics we talked about the last couple days to anything we've covered before or anything that you guys want to talk about. Um, One thing I encourage you guys to do, kind of a call to action, is go to your local towns. If you guys want further proof of the mud flood, I've told you guys before that you can find proof of the mud flood in every city and every town across the world. It is worldwide. And particularly these newer cities like in America, Australia, countries that have only been around for a few hundred years. If you go to those main streets, you will find impossible architecture, impossible stories behind them, no records, no building permits filed, no construction permits filed, no original architect or no original blueprints on record in city halls, at any of these local historical societies. Try it yourself, folks. I've tried in a couple of the small towns in my area to just get any type of original blueprints from buildings pre 1900, and they just don't exist. They have no records of them. And I believe that's what a lot of these great fires were for. So they have an easy excuse to explain in some of these big cities, especially where all the records went for some of these buildings, because a lot of the buildings affected in these great fires were the city halls and you know circuit clerks offices where all these county records are kept. So all of those building records, all of those birth records, death records, all of those were lost in these great fires, so many of them anyways. So yeah, take a camera, take a trip to your local main streets, and you will find proof of the mud flood. It's really everywhere. And do it before they cover it up. I showed you guys a couple weeks back, or couple episodes back, I should say, the evidence I found like a year ago in my old hometown of Rockford. And when I went back, recently, I just went to Rockford about a week or a couple weeks ago, I should say now. Um, and when I went to go back to that same spot with that very obvious buried layer, it was repaved and like blocked over. Like there were these a big wall of like marble blocks that completely covered that old world segment that we've seen. So cities will eventually replace it. The facades that they put up over these buildings cover up a lot of evidence of it. I've noticed like the cities that have a little bit better budget, it's a little more wealthier of a city, do a better job at covering up those obvious buried layers. But if you have a city that's kind of a little run down, a lot in the Midwest, on the Rust Belt line or something like that, cities that can't keep up with repairs, desolate buildings or destitute buildings, that's where you're going to find a lot of proof of the old world before it's torn down or demolished or caught fire. Very sad. Oh, I used to live in Freeport, Illinois, close to Rockford. Yes, Lisa Bradley. I used to go to Freeport quite a lot. Yes, shout out to that Freeport area. Freeport's another area that has a lot of old world signs. It's a very old Illinoisan town. Um, just tons of like old brick structures on the main streets. And you can see kind of how we lost quality over the years, architecture wise. Just look at like city layouts. Like I noticed this the other day looking at a city nearby me in Appleton. The m- old city, like the old couple blocks, like just beautiful architecture, just looks like um, was built hundreds and hundreds of years ago. Just very ornate details. And then you go a couple blocks outside of that, and you have buildings that were built in like the 1950s. They look very durable, but they're mostly built out of wood now, where the other ones were built of, solid stone, limestone, granite, all of that. And the 1950s type structures, though they look very, well built and they are still standing predominantly. The 1950s ones were made out of wood, no ornate details, a lot of the beauty, the outside beauty, especially not showing in the 1950s structures. And then you go out a couple blocks out of that, and you get ones that were built in the 1980s, early 2000s, and they're just boxes. Most of them are completely falling apart now and, rotting out, whatever, because they're made with cheap milled material that's, you know, basically cardboard, and they're all falling apart. And then you go out further from that, and yeah, you have stuff that's built around now, and that's going to be the same problem. They're all just ugly, characterless, featureless glass boxes. Everything's built in like a strip mall type of style, just lacking any character or any beauty. Like, the post offices of old world America looked like beautiful castles with complete with towers, mooring stations on top, looking like anyways. And now post offices are are built in strip malls, just right next to the Chuck E. Cheese's. It's crazy, just like in a few decades, the quality and the level of detail and care we put into these buildings. And that could be found on, yeah, my cat is chill. That is my old man kitty Jagger behind me. He wants to do a cameo, if you guys can see off my shoulder there. Yes, yes, yes. Good thing about cameras, you can see a little bit into my life, not just my ugly mug. I upgraded from my 720p camera that I accidentally left with from my last job. Also left with the sweater from my last job, Spectrum. That's why I've had nothing but love to say about that company in previous videos, dealing with my internet outages and all of that stuff. I know all the game behind the shady Spectrum company. Um, but yeah, so I had to get a new webcam now that I'm actually going to start using it more because my computer can actually handle it. So I got a nice 4K quality camera for that. So got a nice wide angle shot so you guys can see the kitties. The other one will be running around, the little white one. That one's my gift I got to my wife in October. That's Ruby. So we have Ruby, Jagger, the orange cat right there, and Zoe the dog's running around somewhere here. She might be laying with the Mrs. Improbable Dreamer. And then, yeah, you have the kiddos, which you can still probably hear her time to time in the background. That's why, 10:30, everybody says, "Wow, that's late." It's late for me too, folks. It's late for me too. I get up with the little ones every morning, get my son off to school. So I get up at around 6, 7 o'clock every day, and I have to stay up late editing all of this, but usually this is the time she's down for down for bed. But as you can hear, it's not always the case. Let's take a few more of your questions and we'll go to a quick sponsor break and we'll jump into some more just riffing about the old world with you guys. Like I said, tonight it's about no script. It's just about what you guys want to talk about and talking about my cat Jagger. You are still outputting at a max 720p. We can't set it higher on our end. It might be my streaming live because it always upscales the video quality. Like the video quality when I'm live streaming is like kind of slightly grainy, but when it fully uploads, that's when it kind of upscales all the quality and stuff. That's why another point, thanks for pointing that out, Cake. And I'll check the settings on it just to make sure that it's not, but compared to how my other one looks, it is a lot better. The YouTube videos, after they upload, they, kind of put in their own ad blocks. I wanna apologize if you guys get bombarded with ads rewatching some of my lives after they happened. I don't choose to put in those, ad blocks, and as soon as I get any opportunity, once it fully uploads and upscales, uh, once I get an opportunity, I delete like well over half of the ads that they automatically put in on my YouTube videos. So sorry if you guys get bombarded with ads on that. So that's not me and that's not my intention. And I correct it as soon as I can, but I have to wait a little bit after the live for the ability to modify those ad breaks because YouTube just kind of puts them in. So yes, lots of old Carnegie buildings, the old libraries. Yes, they absolutely are. Those old libraries, old banks on the main streets. Um, the old library here that they tore down is just so much more beautiful than the ugly glass building that they replaced it with. Though there's a lot of great features with that library. They did put a lot of stuff in it. They have like a little 3D printing lab and stuff like that. My kid loves going to the library for that. That's cool. I do like how the libraries are trying to get more of the community in them. Not just obviously books are kind of sadly going out of style. Everybody's got Kindles and reads stuff online, but I still personally love a actual copy of a book when I read books. You know, there's just nothing that beats the turn of a page, the feeling of the page, smell of a good old book. Um, nothing kind of beats that for me. So I'll always be a book fan, but a lot of kids these days, they don't have the same thrills about books that, you know, even a couple generations do. Thankfully, my son, he is a bookworm. He always reads. Sometimes I have to actually tell him, "It's too late. You got a school tomorrow. You have to go to bed," because he'll just be in his room for hours reading a book. A lot of it now is Pokemon books, but still, I am proud as can be. I guess funny thing is, as a parent, as it goes full cycle, I probably was reading Pokemon books well into the late nights when I was his age. It's crazy how stuff like that has a staying power in this world. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick sponsor break. We will be right back with more of your questions and comments. Hold tight here. A quick shout out to this program sponsor, Riverside. If these live shows sound smooth and clear, that's Riverside making it happen. Killer audio, zero hassle, and it works every time, even on long nights like tonight. I've tried a bunch. This is the one that actually delivers. Want to start your own podcast? You should totally do it. Make your voice heard. Grab my link in the bio or show notes. It's an affiliate link, helps support the show, costs you nothing. Thanks for listening. Now back to the mysteries. All right, we are back. I just took a quick peek on my daughter and seeing if she was in any stage to go to bed yet. No dice on that. So, a couple questions I heard about the scientist. One of the biggest oddities that I have been following scientist wise has been the Stephen Grillmaker's death. The gentleman, I'm just trying to pull up my notes that I had on him. I kind of want to talk a little bit more about him. We spoke a little bit about it on Friday. He was one of the scientists that had NASA connections, connections to sky observations. His house was built in a remote region in the California desert just to have several large telescope setups there for sky observations. And this neighbor of his, Freddie, I can't remember his last name, Freddie, basically just shot him out of nowhere after being let go from previously trespassing on Grill Mayor's lawn. Well, I should say lawn, but property. It's in the middle of the desert. His neighbors are about 2 miles away. And he was trespassing on Grill Mayor's property with a AR-15. And the judge, the California judge appointed by Governor Newsom, let him out from a, let me see if I have the saved report here. Let him out on the California law here that lets violent criminals walk free. It's basically a prosecutionary discretion on the judge that if there's no reason that he sees to pursue legal charges or further charges with cases, then they can implement this very odd law that passed in California, one of the weirdities of the state of California in general. Though I love the state, it's a beautiful state, but very backwards politics there. Um, so this judge implemented this very odd law that's again for a gun charge, a AR-15 he was caught with, a unlicensed AR-15 that was, improper carrying of firearms without a permit, and it was basically felony gun charges. This judge just out of nowhere let this guy go. So then 2 weeks later, he comes back to Grill Mayor's property and just shoots him dead on the front porch. And what I find odd about this is the 2 911 calls, one from the neighbor, alleged neighbor, that again, the nearest neighbor of Grill Mayor's was about 2 miles away. This is a picture of his compound. You can see it's just surrounded by desert, dirt roads, etc. So a neighbor called almost immediately around 6:10 a.m. after the shots were fired, reporting it. And right after those calls, almost simultaneously after that call, another call was put in reporting a carjacking. Apparently, the suspect, Freddie, uh, carjacked his own aunt on the run from allegedly shooting Grillmare. They have yet to release any audio of the 911 calls. They have yet to release any more details on exactly who called 911. Um, and was it Freddie's aunt or Freddie's mother or another female relative of Freddie's? They have not said that specifically. They're just being very, very vague on this whole case. And this random this random neighbor kills him over, some kind of dispute, some obsession with his land he was reportedly having in the weeks leading up to Carl Grillmare's death. And he was working on infrared telescopes, and Grillmare's work also led to uh, finding a planet with water on it, supposedly. However much you believe in the official NASA narrative. But yeah, here's just kind of a connection between all these scientists recently, their connections between one another, a lot of them having connections with NASA, JPL. Yeah, Michael, you said you did a deep dive everywhere, nothing on the 911 call. And I find that weird because usually you can, like, these 911 calls get released relatively quickly. And I do know people have went as far as filing FOI request for these 911 calls, FOI request for these like these charges, like the information about Freddie. Because another thing I mentioned, what was odd about him is this is a very small town in the middle of the California desert, right? The There's no like information about this this Freddie guy in any other like local information, any newspapers, local stories, like usually in a small town like that, you should find some kind of record of this guy. And there's just absolutely nothing about him. He had no criminal history up until his first interaction with Grillmare. Here's another photo of his compound. Just it's completely isolated in the middle of nowhere. The fact that this Freddy guy was even like stalking him on his property is just odd enough. And the fact that that judge, I mean, yeah, you can say commie California judge that just, did what commie California judges do, but it's just a very odd set of circumstances. And again, all of these scientists have very odd sets of circumstances behind them. One of the scientists, the one that it was like what professor at MIT or something like that. Let me see if I can pull that list up. His shooter was, they say, a like jealous ex-student or enraged ex-student of his that did a mass shooting and then uh, went and shot his professor as well. Who was that? Let me try and think of the name of that off the top of my head. I don't know if it shows it on this list or not. No, I don't want to spend too much time talking about these scientists. I want to get to more of your guys' questions. But yeah, I mean, just anywhere you look into this, it's just a deeper and deeper rabbit hole. I like to touch topics like this, not just the old world. I know some of you have said, "Oh, just stick to the old world stuff, stick to the old world stuff," but I believe it's all important, and I believe it's all connected in a way. Um, these same groups of elites that run the world today ran the world post reset. It is their game that we were born into, and you know you got to get a complete picture of it to really understand exactly what's going on. um, and the past is a great way to show you where you're going, but you also have to see what's going on in the moment to kind of get the full context of the picture, at least in my point. Let's take a few of your questions here. You know how the US and Israel takes out Iranian scientists, and US has been on alert for Iran terror cells. Maybe these cells are killing the US scientists. It's possible, puppies. Yeah, GSD puppies. There is a lot of odd stuff behind these political politicians. Trump's not acting anything like last term Trump was all about no wars, and now he's just getting into the senseless Iran conflict. It is a lot more than what the media the media says. Trump, whatever you say about him, one thing is he's a populist. He is all about doing what the crowd wants him to do, and he wants to be popular with his base. The base, his own base, like I think was 70-80% of them do not want to did not want anything to do with this Iranian conflict. So the fact that a populist president goes into a unpopular war the year of the midterms, for somebody who's grown up in a very political family, a family that is very, when I was a kid, my parents took me to the George W. Bush inauguration and stuff like that. So my parents were very big into politics. I'm, kind of studied on politics in my life. Like it's just very odd set of circumstances for any president, blue or red or whatever, to to start a war right before midterms. They know, and in, most wars are very unpopular, and to start one before midterms, you almost guarantee a shellacking in the midterms. So there's something much, much deeper going on with these Iranian wars. And Iran is just an old civilization. Old, old, old. That this is, centuries, centuries, thousands of years. This is a biblical country. Lots of old artifacts, old world stuff. some of the theories going on what really happened with the Iraq war and the Afghanistan war, um, that Saddam Hussein had old world technology, ancient Sumerian technology like stargates and portal tech, that he was recently discovered some of it, and that was one of the precursors to why we invaded Iraq. Oddly enough, one of the first places we um, liberated, the first places we occupied was the Iraq National Museum. So very, very odd. There's like a lot of stories behind Gilgamesh and the Iraqi war. So none of these wars in the Middle East is basically what I'm saying. None of them are what we're being told they are. And this the whole thing surrounding this Iran war is very, 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 very odd. Idiocracy, yes, absolutely, Nephilim Hunter. That's what movie we seem to be in more and more. Most of the masses are just all about they have the shortest attention spans and they could care less what's actually going on. They just it's much easier for them to be told what to think, told what to do, and very evident in 2020 and stuff, seeing that how many people just blindly lined up for an experimental jab. And all these years later, how many people are still getting boosters for that thing? It's crazy. It's crazy. Everybody knows members of their family that's had some kind of issues or some kind of lingering symptoms from their jabs. I myself do as well, and yet they still defend it. It's crazy how brainwashed a majority of the people are. That's why when a lot of people in comments have said, like, well, how is this stuff hidden? How are you able to talk about it if it's hidden? It's because most of what I talk about, old world stuff, it is out there. It's easy to dig up and find if you look for it. But I say it's hidden in plain sight because a majority of the masses just blindly walk past these beautiful structures that don't make sense. They never question the narrative behind them. They never poke into the building history behind any of their buildings in their local towns. And that's why when people like me in the community uh, question the build times, question the legitimacy of the history behind some of these structures. They think it's baffling and crazy. Why would anybody question that? Most of them have never questioned anything in their life, and it really shows. Let's see, pick some more of your questions here. Bold as a lion. And if you look into the countries that were not on the central banking list, Iran and Cuba are the last two. It's why Trump is talking about Cuba next. Yes, and before that, was it not Venezuela, Iran, and Cuba? And before that, it was what Iraq, Venezuela, Iran, and Cuba. And even further back than that, it was Afghanistan. And all of these countries, one by one, president after president, right wing, left wing, it doesn't matter, folks. The right and left are the same wings of the same bird. It's just a giant uniparty that just trick us into fighting amongst ourselves over the right and left while they go to the same clubs. They have cocktails together. They all do the same things. They all are in bed with the same lobbyist. And I mean, politics is just one of the biggest distractions out there. Politics, even more so than sports. I mean, sports have some of their merit, but politics is just a complete energy drain these days. There used to be some good in political discourse. I remember in the 90s, 2000s, like I said, I grew up in a very political house. You could actually talk politics with a opposite party. We could have disagreements. You could still respect the other side's points of views. Now, people that are in politics, the right wing thinks the lefts are a bunch of communist septum piercing crazies, and some of them are, and the left thinks that the right are all a bunch of gun toting nuts, and a lot of them are, but they, call each other Nazis and all these other just extreme words, and just the way that politics has divided just this country alone. Not sure, any other people in other countries out there. I'm sure it's the same way for you guys, but the last few decades, it's just been ramping up. They've just been ramping up their way to divide us into smaller and smaller groups and divide us on more and more issues. So we're just constantly fighting each other blindly. And we never look at who's really in charge of it. And that's what the point is behind a lot of this, folks. A lot of you guys have asked, what's the point of this all? Why hide giants? Why hide Tartaria? Why hide X, Y, and Z? It's to just keep us blind, confused, unaware of our true past, our true history, and adding that on top of all of the other stuff they keep us fighting on. They just want us blissfully unaware, so we never have the means to rise up to who's really holding us down. Well, I thank you, Michael. They use those words when they're losing a civil discussion. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and that it just seems like more of those buzzwords are constantly being spewed around. Have I ever looked into the electrotype plating of dead bodies? There are newspaper articles back in 1886. It seems to have been a thing back then. Um, Electrotype plating. I have not looked up the specifics of that. No, actually. I will jot down electrotype plating. Okay. Ask me again about that next Friday open line there. I'll take a look into that. That's very intriguing. Maybe I'm not understanding the full question there, big boy pants, but yeah, I have not heard of that one before. I'll definitely take a look into that. Absolutely. Cake, you say the difference between politics and religion is religion started out as a way to live your day well and prosper for you and your neighbors. Politics is just prosper now for ID. Yeah. Um, Religion is another thing, just like politics, that in modern day they have really hijacked it. They have really kind of turned it as a way to kind of be a tool of the state again to divide us. Most modern day religions are just a controlled manipulation of man. The Bible has been altered so many times from its original volumes. They've removed so many books from the Bible. And that is not by, that is for a very specific reason, to hide the truth of our history, our past, spiritually, uh, etc. They don't want you to have the true knowledge of, how to be saved, essentially. And they want religions to just be another controlled tool to divide us, Muslims against Christians, Jews against Muslims and Christians, whatever. It's just it's just a smaller and smaller pool they can dump us into. And if you're going to fight about politics, you're also going to fight about religion, you're also going to fight about this and that. And it's just, everything. It's just used as a tool to control and manipulate us. That's what I even say about the scientists, like how much the mainstream is pumping it up, how much they are pushing it. They they're doing it for a reason. Anything that's that much of a mainstream topic, much of a mainstream story, there's a reason for it, and it's not what they tell you it is. We are seeing the formation of Albert Pike's letter slash prophecy on World War III take shape as Russia and Iran have made ties. Yes, yes, we are. I think we're really pretty much already in World War III. I mean, if you look at the history of World War II, World War One, they never called them world wars or the Great Wars or anything like that during them, and nobody really realized how much they were already in it. Just like in World War II, America was in it long before the first shots, the first bombs were dropped, giving supplies to the allies and all of that stuff, ramping up manufacturing of military equipment, and all of these stages like the big involvement, the big buildup between all the major nations, all exchanging shots. If you look at like World War II's history, World War I's history, the buildup is very, very similar to what's going on now. Like Russia and China are providing intel to Iran. It's kind of a little dirty secret everybody knows, but nobody's really admitting to. And we've been fighting a proxy war for years in Ukraine against Russia, providing arms to the Ukrainians to fight Russia, which I mean, that's pretty much just going at it right there. So no wonder why Russia is going to be providing support to Iran and all of this. Iran's still going strong against America because they are propped up from these opposing superpowers. So, and America's really kind of made itself look very weak in this conflict, in my opinion. Very, very weak indeed. Iran should be a country that, with all the massive power that we have, the massive capabilities militarily we have, the amount of massive amount of money we spend militarily, we should have been no amount of stress taking out Iran and stopping their missile capabilities, stopping the strait from being closed. But here we are, what, like 50 days into this war, and really we have to question everything we know conventional warfare. Like, we have the most aircraft carriers in the world, but they don't really seem to matter anymore in this day and age. Do we need aircraft carriers anymore? Should we just focus all on drone tech? Because it seems like aircraft carriers are just big wastes of money at this point. They, they're not really able to do much at all against Iran's much cheaper drone arsenal. So yeah, this is a lot of odd things going on at once, folks. It's all seems to, like I asked yesterday, if you guys got that feeling, like that gut feeling, it just seems to get stronger and stronger every day that something big's happening. Something big's going down. I'm not one of those channels that like to predict the end of the world, prediction of doom and gloom, but and I don't and I hope to I hope to God that I'm wrong here in saying that, something big's building up, and I don't think it's something good. So, just, be aware, guys. Just keep your heads on a swivel. I don't know if we're coming up to potentially another reset event, whether it's a orchestrated reset by the elites. I mean, during the 2020 times, you had the World Economic Forum talking about the Great Reset. We will own nothing and eat our bugs, and we will be happy. They want us, basically as controlled as we can be. And, they seem like the elites have been very much manufacturing a reset type of event. Like, all the world seems differently after the lockdowns, and I don't think that's any coincidence. It all is ramping up, it's all building. I don't think the whole 2020 thing, I don't think that's done. I think that was just a trial run. They gave up power way too quickly, is my thought on that whole thing. They put us, where we couldn't go 6 feet from each other, we couldn't have backyard barbecues, we couldn't gather for mass, and then they just kind of all let that control. Governments, powers that be, rarely relinquish control when they get it. So, and again, how it was all just uniformed across the board. And yeah, there were slow holdouts across, more stricter states, blue states mostly, at least in this country, but it just all stopped as quickly as it started. And we were just over the whole 2020 thing, and we were on to the next hyper focused distraction, war in Ukraine. And that's where we've been. Uh, KRB, I so appreciate you and your background. I have a brother who has been in the same shoes, and I wanted to find a way to reach him. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. That is awesome. Thank you very much for that, KRB. 1953 Iranian coup was a covert operation orchestrated by the United Kingdom's MI6 and the United States CIA to overthrow Iran's first democratically elected leader. Yeah, yeah, I believe that. I believe that. We have done many, many staging of coups, revolutions, taking out world leaders. America, love this country to death. It's, beautiful country, has some of the best opportunities afforded to it, some of the most just beautiful landscapes. You can go from state to state and just see a whole different world in every state pretty much. And the governments, not the people of America, the government of America is just, really has all got us in these endless wars. It's all about a whole military industrial complex. We have been in conflict for a majority of the time of our founding of our little country here. The 250 years of being a country, we have been in some kind of conflict across the globe for most of it, not anything related to us. Most of it, most people can't even point to it on a map. But we've been funding endless wars. We've been providing arms to rebels that then become terrorists, and then we attack the terrorists that we funded and armed. It's just an endless cycle. It's stressing, frustrating. Let's take a few more of your questions here before we wrap up tonight's episode. Everyone feels a shift change. Every even half asleep people. We know the crypto digital reset is literally upon us, which is one reason Iran's not playing ball with central bank is problems for control. Yes, I agree. I agree. Honestly, it's crazy. The whole Epstein list, nothing's being done about that. That shows you what the state of this world's and not a single arrest has taken place, except for just Cillian Maxwell, who was arrested and charged with trafficking children, and none of her clientele, trafficking to who? She got arrested for it, but nobody connected to it or anything else has ever been arrested. Um, it's crazy what they can get away with. And let us have an unpaid parking ticket and they'll be banging on our doors. Uh, yeah, it's ridiculous. It's a whole different set of rules for them. And that's what it really is about. Just waking up and realizing that my brother shot himself after he returned from, oh my god, I'm so sorry about that, bold as a lion. Serving in Iraq where I found him dead. So this war is really hitting me hard. So sick of this reality where, and yes, and that's what's hitting me hard about this war too. I didn't have anyone that had that situation, Lion. And again, so very sorry for your brother, and thank you so much for his service. But Americans have a big respect and a big, admiration and love for the most part of our military, and most of us were around during the last war in Iraq, last Middle East conflict, the last thing that's taken 20 years before they pulled out of it. And it was just so sad to see the soldiers, the effects that it had on them, the most. Like, and then how we, as a people, as a government, taken so very poor care of our veterans. The VA that's supposed to provide care for veterans have done historically such a terrible job, especially all of these Iraqi war, these Gulf War vets. It's just terrible, and then to just see it all playing out again, and you know, this is supposed to be a conflict that Trump's told us was over, just like George Bush's biggest blunder, the whole mission accomplished type thing. He's declared probably 20 times already by now that the mission is accomplished. Iran's capabilities are completely decimated, but yet they're still shooting down our fighters and they're still launching missiles at our allies. And we are still closer and closer to boots on the ground, full on conflict. And I think once that happens, that's when it's going to really kick off and potentially be a full on actual world war. not just a world war that's kind of being played by proxy now. And just like as always, history seems to have a way of repeating itself, right, folks? If it doesn't rhyme, it sure is heck, or if it doesn't repeat itself, it sure as heck rhymes. So, yeah, well, it was a great open line Fridays conversation with you guys. Not so much on the old world, but talking a little bit about modern events, these scientists, a little bit about old world Chicago, and a lot more. And just chatting with you guys. I just love chatting and building this community we have. And I see it growing bigger and bigger every day. I appreciate all of your guys' support. Make sure you guys like and subscribe if you enjoyed this chat tonight. We will be back Tuesday, 10:30 p.m. Central Standard Time live, questioning everything as always. Don't forget to join the Discord. You can chat before or after the show, and if you want to be a part of the program on Discord as well. Have a wonderful weekend, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in live tonight, and we will see you Tuesday. And until next time, question everything, friends.